5 times in history, global debt hit this exact level. 5 times leaders promised it was, manageable. 5 times experts said the system was stable, and 5 times everything collapsed. Right now, we're watching it happen again. Not slowly, not quietly, but in real time. This isn't a theory. It isn't speculation. It's a pattern that erased entire civilizations, and it follows the same 6 stages every single time. And here's the part no one on the news will tell you. We're not in the early warning stage. We're not at the beginning of the cycle. We're already past the point where systems normally recover. The math already decided what happens next. You just haven't been shown the pattern yet. In this video, I'm going to show you the 6-stage reset that destroyed empires, collapsed currencies, and wiped out savings, and why the world's biggest financial system is now walking that exact same path. Stay with me, because once you see this pattern, you won't be able to unsee what's coming. There's a reason you were never taught this in school. Not because it isn't real, but because it reveals something most people were never supposed to see. Throughout history, when debt grows beyond what an economy can ever realistically repay, the system doesn't fix itself. It doesn't slowly recover. It doesn't get balanced. It resets. This is known as the debt reset cycle, and it has quietly repeated over and over, wiping out currencies, erasing savings, and transferring wealth in ways that look like accidents, but follow a clear pattern. In ancient Rome, 33 AD, the empire faced a frozen credit system so severe that private debts had to be absorbed by the state to prevent total collapse. In medieval Europe, 1347, debt pressure collided with bank failures and societal breakdown, triggering one of the largest economic resets in recorded history. During the French Revolution in 1789, national debt became so overwhelming that the entire financial system was torn apart and rebuilt from scratch. In Weimar Germany, 1923, hyperinflation destroyed personal savings almost overnight, effectively deleting the country's debt through currency collapse. And after World War II, post-war Europe in 1953, the London Debt Agreement quietly erased massive national debts so the global system could restart. These events weren't just random disasters. They actually followed the same hidden script. And that script reveals something pretty uncomfortable. Debt resets aren't about failure. They're really about controlled wealth transfer. But here's the thing. None of this starts with collapse. It starts with euphoria. Stage 1. Fake prosperity. Every collapse starts the same way. Not with panic, not with fear, but honestly, with excitement. Cheap money just floods the system. Loans become easy. Credit cards multiply. Mortgages feel harmless. Governments borrow without resistance. On paper, everything looks like growth. But, it isn't real growth. It's actually manufactured growth. This is the moment when debt becomes the new economic drug. It feels good. It moves fast. It creates energy. People spend more. Cities expand. Stock markets soar. Politicians point to rising numbers and, they call it success. And the people who benefit first? They're the ones closest to the money. Banks lend before risk catches up. Corporations borrow before costs rise. Asset owners see prices climb long before wages do. Early insiders ride the wave while everyone else believes the story. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some historians argue this phase wasn't just an accident of human optimism, but a form of deliberate social engineering. A way to get populations comfortable with debt, dependent on credit, and emotionally invested in a system they could never control. The illusion works because it feels natural. It feels like progress, but it's really just pulling future wealth into the present. And once enough of that future has been spent, the system crosses a line it can't come back from. Then comes the point of no return. Stage 2, the 250% debt trap. There is a statistical red line that almost no country survives. When total debt, government, corporate, and household, crosses roughly 250% of GDP, the system enters what many analysts quietly call the death zone. At that point, debt stops being a tool for growth and becomes a weight chaining the economy in place. More money goes towards servicing old promises than creating anything new. Innovation slows, wages stagnate, living costs rise. The system still looks alive, but it's no longer moving forward. Historically, this threshold acted like gravity. Rome crossed it before its credit freeze. France crossed it before revolution. Weimar Germany crossed it before its currency collapse. And here's the modern shock. Global debt isn't near this line anymore. It's far beyond it. Right now, total world debt sits above 300% of global GDP, a level no major civilization has ever sustained without a reset. Governments roll it over. Banks hide it in derivatives. Corporations refinance instead of repaying. On the surface, everything looks stable. But under the surface, the math is already broken. Some insiders claim central banks understood this danger decades ago and chose to delay the reckoning instead of stopping it. Not as fact, but as a strategic gamble. Push the problem forward and hope the system survives one more cycle. The trap is now closed. But the real trap doesn't spring until interest eats the entire system alive. Stage 3. Growth becomes impossible. This is the stage where the numbers stop lying. Imagine an engine running at full speed, burning fuel, creating heat, making noise, but the wheels aren't turning. That's what happens when an economy reaches this phase. The engine is running, but the fuel goes straight to the debt. Here's the simple math trap. An economy grows by creating new value. But when the interest on old debt becomes larger than the value the economy can produce, every step forward is swallowed instantly. Nothing accumulates. Nothing builds. Everything just gets consumed. It looks like motion, but it's stagnation. And now, let's look at the real world. The United States is spending close to $1 trillion per year just on interest. That's not healthcare. It's not education. It's not infrastructure. That money honestly produces nothing. It goes straight to servicing the past. Meanwhile, real economic growth is struggling to keep up. So, every new dollar the economy creates, it immediately disappears. Not into innovation, not into productivity, just into debt. This is the moment when the illusion of control really breaks. Governments stop talking about solutions. The media shifts to distraction. Markets become, well, twitchy. You don't hear panic openly. You hear it in whispers, in nervous rate hikes, in emergency meetings, in quiet institutional repositioning. The machine still looks alive, but it can no longer move forward. This is where panic whispers begin. This isn't the moment of financial collapse. It's worse. It's the moment of psychological collapse. Because this is where the system, still exists on paper, but nobody inside it really believes in it anymore. Publicly, governments keep smiling. Budgets are announced. Speeches are given. Promises are made. Everything sounds normal. Everything looks controlled. But behind closed doors, the tone changes. Insiders quietly move assets, quietly shorten timelines, quietly prepare exits. And not because of panic, but because of calculation. Reports suggest that major financial institutions already model these scenarios internally, not as public forecasts, but as private contingency plans. Not if something goes wrong, but when the math forces it. They don't say it out loud. They don't warn the public. They just position early. And honestly, the most dangerous part? The public starts to feel it without being able to explain it. Trust weakens. Long-term planning feels pointless. People stop believing in decades from now. The future feels shorter. That's the real signal of stage 4. Not crashes, not headlines, but a quiet emotional shift across entire populations. When people stop trusting the future, a system has already lost. And when that realization spreads, the streets change. Stage 5, social and political fracture. This is where, the financial crisis turns into a human one. The story stops being about numbers, and honestly, it becomes about sides. On one side, debtors, people who feel trapped, buried, exhausted by payments that never seem to end. They want relief, they want resets, they want forgiveness. On the other side, creditors, people who saved, who invested, who believed in the system. They want stability. They want contracts respected. They want sound money. And once this split forms, a society just can't hold together the way it used to. A forgiveness culture begins to rise. Student loans should be erased. Mortgages should be reduced. Credit card balances should disappear. At the same time, a sound money culture hardens. Gold, Bitcoin, cash hoarders, hard asset believers. People who think, honestly, that inflation itself is a quiet form of theft. And, something strange happens in every single cycle at this stage. Something weird happens in every cycle here. Politics stops being about ideas and becomes about survival. Debates stop being about policy and become about who deserves to lose. Laws get rewritten. Rules get bent. Emergency powers expand. And really, No one fully agrees on what's fair anymore. That's when a system becomes unstable for real. Because once a society splits into debtors and creditors, there's no peaceful resolution left inside the old rules. And then comes the reset itself. Stage 6. The three ways debt dies. There is no soft landing at this stage. There is no slow repair. There is no careful balancing. Debts don't get paid, they get deleted. History shows only 3 ways this ever happens. The first is hyperinflation. Money is created so fast that the currency just loses meaning. Prices explode, wages can't keep up, savings melt. On paper, debts are being paid, but in reality they're being erased with worthless money. The second is a debt jubilee. A government steps in and simply cancels what can no longer be honored. Creditors take the hit, debtors are wiped clean. The old system collapses and a new one is built on top of the ruins. The third is war. Not just conflict, but chaos big enough to make debts unenforceable. Infrastructure is destroyed, institutions break down, records vanish. The system doesn't reset, it breaks, and the debt disappears with it. These are not theories, they are historical escape valves. And every time, the same thing happens. People think policymakers have a fourth option. They don't. When math says something cannot be paid, reality enforces the rule. What makes this moment more dangerous than the past isn't the method, it's the scale. The world has never carried debt like this before. The systems have never been this interconnected, and digital money has never moved this fast. Now here's why this time feels different. Why this cycle is happening faster. This time, the cycle isn't moving at human speed, it's moving at machine speed. In the past, money moved slowly. Paper records, physical gold, manual approvals, weeks to settle, months to feel the impact. Now money moves in milliseconds. Digital currencies, instant settlements, global markets that never sleep, trillions moving with a click. Capital doesn't walk anymore, it teleports. Finance is no longer driven by people, it's driven by algorithms. Programs react to headlines before humans even read them. Trading systems move billions automatically. Liquidity can appear and vanish in seconds, not years. And here's where things get even more unsettling. Some analysts believe portions of global markets are now effectively guided by AI-controlled trading systems. Not as science fiction, but as advanced predictive models that constantly look for risk and opportunity. This isn't confirmed in public. It's not openly discussed. But insiders talk about it like it's already normal. The effect is simple and honestly dangerous. Crises that once took decades to build now form in just a few years. Cycles that used to unfold over generations now compress into a single decade. Corrections that once felt slow now feel, well, violent. There is no time buffer anymore, no long warning period, everything just runs faster. And that speed, it really changes who wins and who gets erased. When the reset begins, it doesn't hit everyone at once. It moves quietly, selectively, almost politely. The first victims are savers. People who did everything right. They worked, they saved, they delayed gratification. But their reward is a bank account that loses value every single year. Not through headlines or crashes, but through silent erosion. A quiet shrinking of purchasing power that feels invisible until it's too late. Next are bondholders, people who trusted stability, government bonds, corporate debt, pension funds, instruments designed to preserve wealth slowly turn into traps. The interest paid looks real, but inflation eats more than it gives back. On paper, they're safe. In reality, they're losing ground every year. Then come fixed-income retirees, people living on pensions and guaranteed payments. Their numbers don't change. Their checks don't shrink. But the world around them doubles in price. Groceries, rent, healthcare, energy. No one steals their money directly. No one announces it. No emergency alert goes off. It's more subtle than that. It's a form of silent theft. Not dramatic, not violent, but systematic. And by the time most people notice, the damage is already done. Their money didn't disappear. It just stopped meaning what it used to. But there's a quiet group that always survives. When the reset finishes tearing through the system, one group is always left standing. People with fixed-rate debt. While everyone else panics about rising prices, their payments stay locked. The currency weakens. The numbers inflate, but their debt stays frozen in time. What once felt like a burden quietly shrinks in real-world weight. They don't fight the storm, they let it dissolve what they owe. Next are hard asset owners, people who own real things. Not promises, not paper, not digital IOUs. Land, property, commodities, tangible assets that don't rely on trust or policy. When money loses credibility, these assets quietly step into power. Not overnight, not loudly, just steadily. And then there are the ones who saw it early. They didn't wait for validation. They didn't trust headlines. They didn't follow comfort. They recognized the pattern when everyone else was distracted by noise. They positioned themselves before the warning signs were obvious, before the talking points changed, before the public narrative flipped, not because they were lucky, but because they understood the cycle. Here's the truth most people never hear. The reset isn't random. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't shock the system. It follows a pattern. And the people who win are the ones who see the pattern first. Here's the part that makes this uncomfortable. We're not entering stage 1. We're already surviving stage 3. The fake prosperity phase? That passed years ago. The debt crossing the danger line already happened quietly in the background, and the stage everyone thinks is coming soon. Stage 4 isn't coming. It's already here. You can see it in rising costs that don't match reality, in growth numbers that feel off, in markets that move on headlines instead of fundamentals. The system isn't warming up. It's overheating. Most people will keep living like everything is normal because the collapse doesn't feel like a collapse at first. It feels like confusion, like pressure, like something that doesn't make sense but no one wants to say out loud. And that's how every reset disguises itself. Not as a disaster, but as a slow realization. If this made you see the world a little differently, you'll want to stick around. We break down the patterns most people aren't taught to notice, and why spotting them early changes everything. Because once you see the cycle, you can't unsee it.